In the stillness of an untouched wheat field, a single star hung in the night sky, defying the laws of nature. It remained motionless, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. A light that whispered of secrets untold, yet emitted no sound. An impossible phenomenon that beckoned the attention of every restless farmer and curious neighbor. As the moonlight danced over the golden stalks, something remarkable began to unfold beneath that silent beacon. A perfect circle carved into the earth, its geometric precision suggesting a force far beyond human comprehension. The air thickened with an unsettling energy, leaving an unshakable sense of dread that perhaps, just perhaps, someone or something had shaped this field for a purpose yet to be revealed. What lay within that circle? The answer could either unveil a miracle or unleash a terror that would haunt the small town of Eldridge forever. As the night deepened, the boundary between reality and the unknown blurred, pulling everyone closer to the edge of a mystery that demanded to be solved or feared. In the stillness of an untouched wheat field, a single star hung in the night sky, defying the laws of nature. It remained motionless, casting an eerie glow over the landscape, a light that whispered of secrets untold, yet emitted no sound. An impossible phenomenon that beckoned the attention of every restless farmer and curious neighbor. As the moonlight danced over the golden stalks, something remarkable began to unfold beneath that silent beacon. A perfect circle carved into the earth, its geometric precision suggesting a force far beyond human comprehension. The air thickened with an unsettling energy, leaving an unshakable sense of dread that perhaps, just perhaps, someone or something had shaped this field for a purpose yet to be revealed. The night was heavy, as if the sky itself held its breath, a palpable tension hanging in the humid air. The wind blew softly, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and ripened wheat. Yet it felt wrong, laced with an undercurrent of something otherworldly. The distant hoot of an owl pierced the silence, echoing through the fields like a warning. Underneath that star's unwavering gaze, the wheat swayed slightly, as if responding to an unseen force, bending in perfect rhythm, moving in tandem with the pulses of energy that coursed through the ground. Eldridge was a place where the ordinary met the extraordinary, where farmers exchanged tales of crop yields and weather patterns, but tonight their conversations were heavy with an unspoken fear. The local diner, usually alive with laughter and chatter, was now filled with hushed voices and darting glances. Old man McCarthy, with his weathered hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, leaned in close as he whispered of the lights he had seen flickering in the fields. "I swear it was like the stars were dancing," he muttered, his voice a gravelly whisper that seemed to carry the weight of his years. "Did you see it too, McCarthy?" asked Clara, her eyes wide as she leaned closer, almost conspiratorially. "I heard the kids talking about it, but I thought they were just trying to scare each other." Her voice trembled, betraying her desire to dismiss what she had heard. "I thought it was just my old eyes playing tricks," he replied, taking a tentative sip of his coffee. But there was something different, something that felt alive out there. As the moon rose higher, illuminating the landscape in shades of silver and shadow, the townsfolk began to gather near the edge of the field, an invisible line drawn between the safety of their homes and the mystery that beckoned them. They stood there, hearts pounding, eyes wide, feeling the electric tension in the air. A child, no more than 8 years old, tugged on his mother's sleeve, pointing toward the wheat field where the circle lay, its edges sharp and defined against the darkness. "Mom, look, what's that?" he asked, his voice a mix of wonder and fear. But she only shook her head, a frown creasing her brow, turning her gaze away from the field. "It's nothing, honey, just the wind playing tricks," she replied, though her voice trembled slightly, betraying her uncertainty. The adults exchanged worried looks, their instincts screaming that this was not just a natural occurrence, that something was amiss. "Look at how the wheat is bending," someone murmured, stepping forward, their eyes locked on the circle. "It's almost like it's alive." "Don't be foolish," another voice shot back, a mixture of irritation and fear. That's just a trick of the light. We shouldn't be out here at all. I don't know, the first voice replied, glancing nervously at the field again. It feels like something is watching us. A collective shiver ran through the group, the atmosphere thickening as the night deepened, the air heavy with anticipation. It was then that a low hum began to resonate from the direction of the circle, a sound so subtle that it seemed to vibrate through the ground rather than the air. It was as if the earth itself was alive, a heartbeat pulsing beneath the surface, calling to them, inviting them closer. The hum was hypnotic, luring the curious and the brave alike, but it was also a warning, an echo of the unknown that thrummed in their bones. "What if it's a sign?" whispered Clara, her voice barely above a breath, her eyes reflecting the silvery light emanating from the circle. "What if it's something that needs to be understood, or something that should be left alone?" An older man countered, his brow furrowing. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." As they stood there, the shadows lengthening around them, a faint, silvery light began to emanate from within the circle, illuminating the field in a ghostly glow. It flickered and shimmered, casting an otherworldly radiance that danced upon the wheat, highlighting the intricate patterns that swirled with an elegance that defied explanation. The townsfolk gasped collectively, their fear mingling with awe as they witnessed the impossible, a phenomenon that felt like a glimpse into another realm. A shared glance of disbelief passed among them, a silent acknowledgement that they were witnessing something beyond the ordinary. The circle pulsed with energy, a geometric perfection that seemed to defy the very nature of their existence. It was an invitation and a warning, a challenge to their understanding of the world, and the realization that they were standing on the precipice of something vast and unknowable sent chills racing down their spines. "What lies within that circle?" whispered a woman, clutching her husband's arm tightly. "Do you think we should go closer?" "No," he replied sharply, his eyes darting toward the field. "We need to get out of here. This isn't right." But the pull of the light was undeniable. "It could be a miracle," Clara argued, her curiosity igniting a spark of defiance. "What if it's something we've been waiting for?" The air shimmered with tension, the boundary between reality and the unknown blurring, pulling everyone closer to the edge of a mystery that demanded to be solved or feared. The sense of dread mingled with curiosity, a potent mix that kept them rooted to the spot, unable to look away from the silent light that beckoned them closer, promising revelations that could shatter their understanding of life in Eldridge. The night enveloped Eldridge in a thick blanket of silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. The moon cast its pale light across the landscape, illuminating the sprawling fields that stretched endlessly under the vast, star-studded sky. Yet, amidst this serene backdrop, an unsettling tension hung in the air, palpable and electric. It was as if the land itself held its breath, waiting for the next chapter of a story that had yet to unfold. The townsfolk, entrenched in a world defined by the familiar rhythms of rural life, now stood transfixed in a tableau of disbelief and fear. Shadows danced around them, stretching and contorting as they huddled together, their whispers mingling with the night air. The soft, earthy scent of tilled soil was laced with an unfamiliar metallic tang, an odor that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the phenomenon before them. It was a scent that, once inhaled, sent an involuntary shiver down their spines, a warning of something beyond their comprehension. The flickering light from within the circle pulsated, casting elongated shadows that played tricks on the eyes. Each pulse seemed to resonate with a heartbeat of its own, a rhythmic thumping that echoed in the depths of their minds. It was a sound that defied explanation, a low, humming vibration that reverberated through their very bones. With every beat, the air grew thicker, heavier, almost suffocating, as if the universe itself was compressing around them. Clara felt a strange compulsion drawing her closer, an instinct that tugged at her very being. She could sense the energy radiating from the circle, a warmth that contrasted starkly with the cool night air. It was intoxicating, a siren's call that promised revelations hidden in the shadows of the unknown. Yet, as she took a tentative step forward, she sensed the hesitation of those around her, their fear mingling with her own curiosity. "What do you think it is?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, yet sharp enough to cut through the tension. She searched the faces of her neighbors, looking for a glimmer of understanding, a hint of shared curiosity. But instead, she found only fear mirrored back at her, a reflection of their collective uncertainty. "It's nothing," a man barked, his voice filled with a desperate urgency. "It's just lights. We need to leave. This isn't right." His words hung in the air, a futile attempt to ground them in reality. But Clara felt the pull of the light deepening, intertwining with her thoughts, whispering promises of truth and discovery. The geometric perfection of the circle seemed to beckon her closer, each intricate line and curve drawing her in like a moth to a flame. Suddenly, a low growl broke the silence, emanating from the darkness beyond the field. The sound was guttural, primal, sending a wave of panic through the group. Sheep, previously grazing in the shadows of the barn, had begun to bleat nervously, their instincts screaming of danger. The horses in the nearby stables whinnied and stomped, sensing the disturbance in the natural order of the night. The air was thick with their unease, a cacophony of discordant sounds that clashed against the backdrop of the eerie light. As the group shifted uneasily, Clara's husband, Mark, gripped her arm tightly, his breath coming in shallow gasps. "We should go," he insisted, his voice a mix of fear and authority. "Whatever that is, it's not meant for us." But Clara's heart raced, a contradiction of fear and fascination. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, the gravity of the unknown pulling her further into the mystery. "What if it's a sign?" she countered, searching his eyes for understanding. "What if it's something that could change everything?" Mark's expression hardened, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. "Or something that could destroy us," he replied, his voice low and urgent. "We can't just stand here." The flickering light intensified, bathing the wheat in a surreal glow that seemed to pulse in sync with the pounding of Clara's heart. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, drowning out the cacophony of fear around her. It was mesmerizing, a dance of light and shadow, a cosmic ballet that defied the laws of nature. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the light dimmed, plunging the field into an unsettling darkness. The low hum faded, replaced by an oppressive silence that felt as though it could swallow them whole. The townsfolk shifted nervously, glancing at one another, the fear palpable in their shared looks. "What just happened?" one man whispered, his voice trembling as he peered into the inky blackness that had swallowed the circle. "Is it gone?" But Clara felt it still. An undercurrent of energy that thrummed beneath the surface, a promise that whatever had illuminated the night was still there, lurking just beyond their reach. It was a moment suspended in time, the air thick with unanswered questions, a lingering sense of dread, mingling with an unshakable feeling of anticipation. As the moon cast its silvery sheen upon the land once more, the townsfolk stood on the precipice of a revelation, teetering between disbelief and the undeniable truth that they had stumbled upon something extraordinary. The night was far from over, and the mysteries of Eldridge had only just begun to unravel, weaving a tapestry of fear and fascination that would haunt their dreams for nights to come. The stillness that enveloped the Eldridge field was almost suffocating, as if the very air had thickened into a palpable presence. Clara stood rigid, her breath shallow, the soft rustle of wheat brushing against her skin like whispers in the dark. The moonlight, once a serene beacon, now seemed to mock the frantic beating of her heart, casting elongated shadows that danced with sinister intent. The whispering wind carried a chill that crept up her spine, igniting a primal instinct to flee, yet she remained frozen, unable to tear her gaze away from the now dim circle. Mark's voice cut through the silence, a frantic rasp that echoed her own fears. "What if it's not gone?" His eyes were wide, reflecting the moonlight in a way that made them seem almost unnatural, filled with a mixture of dread and curiosity. Clara could feel the tension radiating from him, an electric charge in the air that buzzed with anticipation. In that bleak moment, the field transformed into a stage. The townsfolk mere spectators caught in a cosmic play that had been set in motion long before they arrived. Clara's senses heightened, every sound magnified. The rustle of leaves, the distant hooting of an owl, and the soft thud of her own heart as it synced with the rhythmic pulse that seemed to echo from the ground itself. It was as if the earth was alive, breathing beneath her feet, and with every exhale it whispered secrets that only the brave dared to uncover. Then, from the depths of the darkness, a low rumble began to rise, a sound that was neither thunder nor the growl of a distant storm. It resonated deep within her chest, an unsettling vibration that seemed to speak directly to her very core. The townsfolk exchanged uneasy glances, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. Clara's breath caught in her throat as the sound swelled, an ominous melody that tugged at the edges of her consciousness, beckoning her to listen closer. "Did you hear that?" A woman's voice broke the tension, her eyes wide with fear. It's like it's coming from the ground." Clara nodded, her mind racing. The vibration was unmistakable, a sound that seemed to ripple through the soil, dancing along the roots of the crops, a language of the earth itself. She felt the pull of it, a magnetic force that drew her closer to the heart of the mystery, the circle that had flickered to life and then faded into obscurity. As the moon climbed higher, the chilling silence returned, wrapping around them like a shroud. The field, once filled with the sounds of the night, now felt eerily abandoned, as though the very essence of life had been siphoned away. Clara glanced at the wheat, its golden stalk swaying gently. But beneath the surface, she could sense a tension, a waiting, as if the plants themselves were holding their breath in anticipation of what was to come. "Look!" Mark's voice broke the stillness again, his finger pointing toward the edge of the field. The others followed his gaze, and Clara's heart raced as she strained to see what had caught his attention. Faint glimmers of light flickered in the distance, not the familiar glow of farmhouses or the warm flicker of lanterns, but something otherworldly, ethereal. The lights danced like fireflies, weaving in and out of the shadows, creating patterns that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. "What are they?" someone whispered, the fear in their voice palpable, as if naming the lights would give them power. Clara felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her again, a sense of foreboding that made her stomach churn. They're not like anything I've ever seen," she murmured, her eyes locked onto the flickering orbs. Each pulse of light resonated with that low hum, intertwining with the very essence of the night, merging with the darkness that loomed around them. The air thickened, a blend of fear and fascination swirling together, and Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. It was an uncomfortable sensation, one that sent chills rippling through her, yet it was laced with an insatiable curiosity. She longed to understand, to unravel the threads of this mystery that had woven itself into the fabric of Eldridge. The townsfolk began to murmur amongst themselves, voices rising and falling like the tide, some eager to investigate further, while others were gripped by an overwhelming urge to flee. "We should go back," one man urged, his voice shaky. "This isn't right. We don't know what we're dealing with." But Clara held her ground, the magnetic pull of the lights drawing her closer, each step fueled by a blend of terror and exhilaration. As she moved, the vibrations intensified, reverberating through her bones, each pulse seemingly urging her forward, closer to the heart of the mystery. She could feel the eyes of the townsfolk on her, a mix of judgment and disbelief, but she was beyond their opinions now. She was teetering on the edge of something monumental, a discovery that could reshape their very understanding of reality. And as she stepped into the darkness, the lights danced with newfound vigor, illuminating a path that led deeper into the unknown, beckoning her to unravel the cosmic tapestry that had begun to unfold before them, one intricate thread at a time. With every heartbeat, Clara felt the tension rise, a silent promise of revelation mingled with the dread of the unknown. She was a part of this moment, woven into the fabric of the night's mystery, and no matter the outcome, she knew she would forever be changed. The field held secrets, and she was determined to uncover them, even as the air crackled with uncertainty, and the shadows whispered tales of what lay just beyond the veil of understanding. The night hung thick and oppressive, a palpable entity that wrapped itself around Clara as she ventured deeper into the field. The air was electric, charged with an energy that pulsed like a heartbeat, echoing the trepidation that gripped her soul. Each step she took was accompanied by an unsettling symphony of sounds. The rustling leaves seemed to whisper secrets. The distant hooting of an owl punctuated the silence, and the soft crunch of dry earth beneath her feet felt like an invitation, a beckoning towards the heart of the enigma that had captivated Eldridge. The lights, once faint and flickering at the edge of her vision, now surged with a brilliance that illuminated the surrounding darkness. They danced and twirled, casting long, eerie shadows that stretched out like fingers, reaching for something just beyond Clara's grasp. They were mesmerizing yet unnerving, flickering in hues that defied explanation, shades of blue and green that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. As she moved closer, she could feel the vibrations intensifying, resonating through the very core of her being, as if the earth itself was alive beneath her feet. The townsfolk had fallen silent, their murmurs replaced by a hushed reverence, each of them standing as silent witnesses to the unfolding mystery. Clara could sense their fear, but it mingled with a shared wonder. They were all caught in the web of the unknown, and she was the only one daring enough to tread further into its depths. With every heartbeat, she felt the weight of their gazes, a mixture of admiration and disbelief that both encouraged and unnerved her. Then, suddenly, the air shifted. A low hum filled the space around her, a sound that seemed to vibrate in her very bones. It was neither mechanical nor organic, but something in between, an echo of a presence that felt ancient and unfathomable. The sound enveloped her, wrapping around her like a shroud, making her acutely aware of the isolation surrounding her. There was nothing else but her and the phenomenon, a singular moment suspended in time where reality blurred at the edges. As Clara drew nearer, she began to discern a pattern emerging in the field, a geometric formation that seemed impossibly perfect, carved into the earth with a precision that defied the natural world. The plants lay flat, their stalks bent yet unbroken, creating a swirling design that spiraled outward from a central point. It was as if the ground had been etched by an unseen hand, an intricate tapestry woven by forces beyond comprehension. The sight of it sent a shiver down her spine, a blend of awe and dread that coiled tightly in her gut. She knelt beside the formation, feeling the cool earth beneath her fingertips, tracing the lines that radiated from the center. The air was infused with a metallic scent, a tang that hinted at something other than mere soil and grass. It was a reminder that this was not just a pattern, it was a message, or perhaps a warning. Clara's heart raced as she absorbed the enormity of the moment. The very fabric of the night around her seemed to pulse in time with her own heartbeat, a cosmic rhythm that resonated deep within her. A sudden gust of wind swept through the field, rustling the leaves and sending a chill racing up her spine. The lights flickered violently, casting erratic shadows that danced wildly across the ground, almost as if they were alive. Clara looked up, instinctively scanning the horizon for any sign of danger, but all she saw was the vast expanse of darkness that enveloped Eldridge. The trees stood like silent sentinels, and the sky, a canvas of stars, bore witness to the unfolding mystery. And then, in that moment of heightened awareness, the silence deepened. It was as if the world held its breath. The hum intensified, merging with the flickering lights, creating a crescendo that filled Clara's ears and reverberated through her mind. She felt a pull, an undeniable urge to step into the center of the formation as if it were calling her, drawing her into its depths where secrets lay hidden, waiting to be unearthed. But as she hesitated, a flicker of doubt coursed through her. What if this was a trap? What if she was being lured into something far more sinister than she could comprehend? The townsfolk's fearful whispers echoed in her mind, and suddenly the weight of their collective anxiety pressed down upon her. Clara felt the eyes of not just the townsfolk, but something else entirely, watching from the shadows, observing her every move. It was a sensation that sent a wave of cold fear crashing over her, and she could no longer discern where the mystery ended and her own fear began. With her heart pounding in her chest, Clara took a deep breath, summoning the courage that had propelled her forward thus far. She stepped closer to the center of the formation, the vibrations thrumming through her, urging her on. The lights pulsed in rhythm with her steps, as if acknowledging her presence, welcoming her into the heart of the mystery. And as she stood at the edge of the unknown, a wave of anticipation and dread washed over her, merging into a singular sensation that echoed the very essence of the night. In that suspended moment, Clara knew she was on the precipice of revelation, but with it came the haunting realization that some truths are not meant to be uncovered. The air crackled with tension, and she felt the fabric of reality stretching, teetering on the edge of something monumental, something that could forever alter her understanding of existence. What would she find when she crossed that threshold? The answer lay just beyond reach, cloaked in shadows, waiting for her to make the choice that could change everything. The night hung heavy around Clara, an oppressive silence enveloping the fields. She could feel the weight of the darkness pressing against her, as if the shadows themselves were alive, whispering secrets that danced just beyond the periphery of her understanding. Her heart raced, a staccato rhythm that echoed in her ears as she stood at the edge of the formation. The air was charged, electric, pulsating with an energy that felt ancient and powerful, a force that transcended the mundane world she had known. In the distance, the faint rustle of leaves broke the stillness, a reminder of the living world that seemed so far removed from the unease that gripped her. The trees stood like sentinels, their branches swaying gently as if sharing in the unspoken tension that filled the night. She could hear the soft croaking of frogs, their calls mingling with the distant hoot of an owl, yet these familiar sounds felt out of place, underscored by the hum that now seemed to resonate from the very ground beneath her feet. It was a sound that vibrated through her bones, beckoning her closer, urging her to surrender to the mystery that lay ahead. As Clara stood there, she felt a shiver crawl up her spine, not from the chill of the autumn air, but from an instinctual warning that clawed at the back of her mind. The townsfolk had warned her, each voice laden with fear, a chorus of caution that whispered of things that should not be seen or understood. They had spoken in hushed tones about the lights, the strange occurrences that had plagued their fields, weaving tales of uncertainty and suggesting that some forces were better left undisturbed. Yet here she was, teetering on the brink of discovery, caught between the allure of knowledge and the terror of the unknown. A flash of light pierced the darkness, illuminating the formation in a ghostly glow. Clara squinted, the brilliance momentarily blinding, but as her vision adjusted, she could see the intricate design etched into the earth. The pattern was mesmerizing, geometric shapes intertwining with one another, an otherworldly beauty that seemed to pulse with life. The blades of grass lay flattened yet untouched, curving in perfect arcs, whispering of a force that had moved through them with calculated precision. It was as if the very essence of the earth had been rearranged, a message encoded in nature, waiting for someone to decipher it. But what did it mean? The questions spiraled in her mind, colliding with the fear that gripped her heart. Was it a sign, a warning, or perhaps a riddle meant to ensnare her spirit? As she took a hesitant step closer, the hum grew louder, a crescendo that filled the void with an unsettling harmony. The vibrations resonated within her, a physical sensation that made her skin tingle, each pulse reverberating with an intensity that threatened to drown her thoughts. She felt as if she were not just an observer, but an integral part of something far greater, something that transcended her comprehension. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush pulled her from her reverie, and she turned sharply, her breath hitching in her throat. The shadows seemed to shift and move, and for a fleeting moment, Clara could have sworn she felt a presence lurking just beyond her vision. It was an unshakable sensation, the feeling of being watched, of being scrutinized by unseen eyes. A primal instinct surged within her, urging her to flee, yet her feet remained firmly planted on the ground, tethered by the gravity of the moment. "Clara," a voice broke through the silence, pulling her back to reality. It was Ethan, the local farmer who had been among the first to witness the phenomenon. His eyes were wide, glinting in the faint light, a mixture of fear and disbelief etched across his face. "You shouldn't be here. No one should be here." "What did you see?" she implored, desperation creeping into her voice. "Tell me." Ethan hesitated, glancing back at the formation as if it were a beast poised to strike. I don't know how to explain it." The lights, they danced and twisted in the sky, and then the ground shook. There was a sound like metal grinding, but it wasn't just noise. It felt like it was alive, like it was trying to communicate. "Communicate?" Clara echoed, her mind racing. "With whom?" "I don't know, and I don't want to find out," he replied, a tremor in his voice. "We're not meant to understand. We're not meant to be here." His words hung heavy between them, a palpable fear that wrapped around Clara's heart. Yet, in the depths of her being, a flicker of something else ignited, a curiosity that burned brighter than the fear. She had come this far, drawn by an inexplicable pull, and now, with the presence of another witness, she felt a surge of determination. But doubt gnawed at her. What if the townsfolk were right? What if they were being watched not just by each other, but by something beyond their comprehension? "Ethan, we can't turn back now," she urged, her voice steadier than she felt. "If there's something here, we have to understand it. We can't let fear dictate our actions." Ethan shook his head vehemently, stepping back as if the very ground beneath him was shifting. "You don't understand, Clara. There's something unnatural about this. We're just two people in a vast, silent field. What if we're not alone?" As his words sank in, a deep chill settled in the air, and Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something indeed lurked in the shadows, just out of sight. She glanced back at the formation, the geometric shapes now casting elongated shadows in the dim light, each angle sharp and defined, like a trap waiting to ensnare the unwary. The hum intensified once more, resonating through the earth, a reminder that the mystery was far from over. "Let's just take a closer look," Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper, the thrill of the unknown battling with the dread that clung to her like a second skin. With trepidation she led the way, each step heavy with purpose and fear, as if the ground itself was a living entity, responding to their every movement. And as they approached the center, the atmosphere thickened, a palpable tension that felt like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. Clara inhaled deeply, the metallic scent of the air now mingling with the earthy aroma of the soil, a strange concoction that set her senses on high alert. The lights flickered again, casting eerie shadows that danced and twisted, and for a moment Clara felt as if the very fabric of reality was fraying at the edges, unraveling before her eyes. "Clara, we shouldn't," Ethan started, but the words were swallowed by the sudden surge of silence that enveloped them. It was as if the world around them had drawn a breath, holding it in anticipation, a moment suspended in time. In that heartbeat, Clara knew they had crossed a threshold. Whatever lay ahead was no longer just a mystery. It was an enigma that threatened to unravel the very essence of who they were and what they believed. The darkness loomed closer, and with it came the realization that they were not just witnesses to an event, but players in a cosmic game that had been set in motion long before their time. And as the hum reached a fever pitch, Clara felt an unmistakable pull, a beckoning, an invitation into the unknown. But with every ounce of courage she summoned, an equal measure of dread coiled tightly in her gut. What awaited them in that sacred space would either shatter their understanding of reality or bind them forever to a fate they could never escape. The following morning the sun rose reluctantly over the horizon, casting a muted light across the fields. Clara and Ethan stood at the edge of the formation, their breaths visible in the crisp morning air, as if the chill of the night still lingered on their skin. The world felt different now, as if the very earth had shifted beneath their feet while they slept. The geometric patterns sprawled before them, impossibly intricate, each angle sharp and defined, like a trap waiting to ensnare the unwary. The hum, once a low whisper, had faded into a haunting memory, leaving behind a silence so profound it felt suffocating. Clara squinted against the brightness, her heart racing as she took in the scene. The way the plants lay bent but unbroken, forming circles and curves that defied explanation, sent shivers down her spine. "Look at this," she finally breathed, her voice trembling with a mix of awe and dread. The patterns were not just random. They were deliberate, mathematical in their precision. Each circle seemed to pulse with a rhythm, a heartbeat echoing a truth that was just out of reach. Ethan shifted nervously beside her, glancing around as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. "We should call someone," he suggested, his voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile veil of calm that enveloped them. "This isn't normal." "Normal?" Clara echoed, shaking her head. "What about this is normal? We've seen things last night that defy everything we thought we knew." Her eyes darted back to the formation, drawn in like a moth to a flame. The metallic scent still lingered in the air, mingling with the earthiness of the soil, creating a sensory overload that was both intoxicating and terrifying. As they stepped closer, the ground felt different beneath their feet, a subtle vibration that pulsed through the soil, resonating in time with the rhythm of her own heartbeat. The sensation was unsettling, a reminder that whatever had happened here was not just a phenomenon of nature, but something far more profound, perhaps even predatory. Clara knelt down, running her fingers over the smooth stalks of wheat that formed a perfect circle, the tips curling gently inward as if hiding secrets long buried. "Do you feel that?" Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper, his eyes wide with fear. "It's like... it's alive." Clara nodded, feeling the tension in the air prickling at her skin. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end as she glanced around, half expecting to see something lurking just beyond the edge of the formation. She could almost hear it, a low, throbbing pulse that seemed to resonate from deep within the earth, a sound that felt like it was calling to them, beckoning them to delve deeper. "Maybe we should get out of here," Ethan urged, his voice strained. "This is getting too weird." But Clara couldn't move. She was rooted to the spot, drawn in by the inexplicable allure of the formation. It was as if the very essence of the place was pulling her closer, whispering promises of understanding and revelation. Yet, with every moment that passed, the sense of foreboding grew heavier, wrapping around her like a shroud. The stillness around them was almost deafening, punctuated only by the distant calls of birds that seemed to echo their own rising anxiety. Clara looked up, scanning the horizon for any sign of life beyond their isolated field. The landscape stretched endlessly, an ocean of green and gold under the brightening sky. But it felt empty, devoid of the comfort and familiarity she had once taken for granted. "Clara," Ethan's voice broke through her reverie, pulling her back from the edge of her thoughts. "What if this is a sign? What if we shouldn't be here?" His words sent a chill down her spine, and she met his gaze, searching for reassurance in his eyes. But all she saw was fear, mirroring her own. Maybe it is, she conceded, her heart pounding in her chest. But there's something here, something we need to understand. As they stood there, the wind began to pick up, swirling around them with a sudden ferocity that sent leaves dancing and twirling like phantoms. Clara felt the air grow heavy, charged with an energy she couldn't comprehend. The shadows cast by the morning sun warped and twisted, flickering like the remnants of a dream, slipping from her grasp. "Clara, look!" Ethan pointed toward the center of the formation, his voice rising in pitch. The ground, where the circles converged, shimmered faintly, as if a hidden light was trapped beneath the surface, struggling to break free. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she watched, transfixed, the light pulsing in sync with the vibrations beneath her feet. In that moment, she was no longer just an observer. She was part of something larger, an intricate web of existence that spanned beyond her comprehension. The metallic scent intensified, filling her lungs as the air quivered with potential, and she felt the pull of the unknown deep within her core. "What do we do?" Ethan's voice trembled, his eyes darting from the light to Clara, filled with desperation. It was then that Clara realized the truth. They were at a crossroads, standing on the brink of understanding and oblivion. The patterns etched into the soil held secrets that could shatter their reality, but they were also a warning, a reminder that some mysteries were never meant to be unraveled. "Let's just take one more step," Clara suggested, her voice steadied by a newfound resolve. She took a deep breath, the metallic tang filling her senses, and moved forward, the ground vibrating beneath her feet as if in response to her determination. As they crossed into the heart of the formation, Clara felt a rush, an electric current surging through the air, wrapping around her like a lover's embrace. The light intensified, illuminating the patterns in a breathtaking display that left her breathless. But somewhere deep inside, a nagging doubt fluttered, whispering that they were treading on sacred ground, a territory best left undisturbed. And as she stepped into the unknown, the weight of her decision pressed down upon her, a reminder that the line between knowledge and madness was thin, and the consequences of their curiosity could be far-reaching. With each heartbeat, Clara felt the world around her pulse with life, a cosmic tension building, as if the very fabric of the universe was watching, waiting for their next move. As Clara took that step into the center of the formation, the world around her shifted. The air thickened, vibrating with an energy that was both unsettling and exhilarating. Each breath she drew felt laced with electricity, the metallic scent intensifying, wrapping around her senses like a shroud. Ethan's hand gripped her arm tightly, his fingers trembling with a mix of fear and awe. They stood at the heart of something ancient, something that had been waiting in silence, perhaps for centuries, to be acknowledged. The circles beneath their feet shimmered in an otherworldly glow, a soft luminescence that seemed to pulse in sync with Clara's racing heart. It was as if the earth itself was alive, breathing, and aware of their presence. The geometric patterns, perfect in their formation, drew her gaze deeper into their complexity. She felt an inexplicable urge to reach out, to touch the cool earth beneath her, to understand the enigma that lay before her. But a voice, barely a whisper, echoed in the recesses of her mind, urging caution. This was no ordinary field. It was a threshold between realms. The silence surrounding them deepened, oppressive and heavy. It was a silence that was deafening, filled with the hum of anticipation. In that quietude, Clara could hear the faintest of sounds, an almost imperceptible thrumming, like the heartbeat of the universe itself. It resonated through her bones, a rhythm that called to her spirit, beckoning her to listen closely. She closed her eyes, allowing the vibrations to wash over her, and for a fleeting moment, she felt as though she could decipher the language of the cosmos. "Clara, we shouldn't be here." Ethan's voice cut through her reverie, laced with panic. "What if we're not alone?" His words anchored her back to reality, and the weight of his fear settled like a stone in her stomach. She opened her eyes to find the light around them flickering, as if responding to his anxiety. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, twisting and curling in ways that defied logic. The air grew colder, a chill creeping up her spine, and she instinctively took a step back, only to find Ethan still firmly rooted by her side, staring wide-eyed at the pulsating formations. "Do you hear that?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling. The thrumming had transformed into something else, a low, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of the air they breathed. It was a call, a summoning, an invitation to delve deeper into the unknown. But the invitation felt more like a trap, a seduction wrapped in the guise of wonder. The realization hit her hard. This was not merely a phenomenon to be studied, it was a force that had the power to consume. She could feel it, an undercurrent of danger laced with the thrill of discovery, pulling at her very essence. Suddenly, a flash of brilliant light erupted from one of the nearby circles, momentarily blinding them. Clara shielded her eyes, heart racing. The brightness was not just illumination. It felt alive, surging with an energy that resonated with her own heartbeat. As the light faded, she caught a glimpse of something shifting within the circle. "Clara!" Ethan's voice was filled with urgency, pulling her attention back to him. "We need to go. Now." But part of her resisted, a deeper instinct compelling her to stay, to understand what lay before them. The patterns in the soil, the vibrations in the air, the whispers of the night. It was all connected, and she felt an overwhelming desire to uncover its truth. Yet the other part of her, the part that understood the weight of her curiosity, screamed in fear, warning her of the dangers that lurked beyond the veil of understanding. As if in response to her internal struggle, the ground beneath them shifted. A low rumble echoed through the field, vibrating through her feet and into her chest. It was a sound that felt ancient, almost primal, as if the earth itself was awakening from a long slumber. Clara's heart raced as she turned her gaze back to the formation, the light flickering again, more insistent this time, a siren's call that reverberated through the night. "Clara, please." Ethan's voice was desperate, his grip tightening on her arm. "We have to leave." She hesitated, torn between the magnetic pull of the unknown and the instinctual warning that echoed in her mind. But before she could respond, a shape emerged from the light, a fleeting silhouette that shimmered and vanished just as quickly. Clara's breath hitched in her throat as she felt a chill envelop her, a sense of being watched, scrutinized by something that existed just beyond her perception. Panic surged within her, and with a sudden burst of resolve, she turned to Ethan. "Let's go," she exclaimed, her voice shaking with urgency. They stumbled backward, feet slipping on the uneven ground, hearts pounding in synchronization with the thrumming energy that enveloped them. As they retreated, the light flickered one last time, illuminating the intricate patterns that seemed to swirl with a life of their own. Clara felt a pang of regret, a sense of loss, as if she was leaving behind a part of herself within the formation. But the fear that coursed through her veins propelled her forward, away from the cosmic mystery that had beckoned them so enticingly. As they fled down the dirt path, the shadows behind them felt alive, whispering secrets in the wind, taunting them with the knowledge that they had only scratched the surface of something far more profound. Clara glanced back one last time, her heart heavy with unanswered questions and a growing sense of dread. The field remained silent, an enigmatic canvas that held its secrets close, while the night sky stretched infinitely above them, a reminder that some mysteries were meant to linger in the dark, forever out of reach. And as they disappeared into the night, the patterns in the field pulsed softly, a lingering echo of their presence, a silent promise that the unknown would always be waiting just beyond the horizon of understanding.